Still sounds as fresh and fabulous as it did first time around. Here he is, Mr. Boy George, ladies and gentlemen. It's fabulous to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you.
It's been quite the year for you, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing year for me, actually, in a lot of ways. I mean, it hasn't all been awful.
Let me ask you about the jail thing, then, because how much of the year did you spend in jail?
4 months.
I mean,
I'm still kind of a prisoner now, because I'm still on licence. I spent 4 months in jail, 4 months on tag, home detention, which meant I was on a curfew from 7 to 7. I could go out between those hours. And
so you could go out between 7 in the morning, had to be home by 7 at night?
Yes.
Weekends, you had to stay in or go out?
Yeah, I couldn't go in my garden.
You can't even leave the house in the,
no,
the garden?
Couldn't go in the garden either.
How do they know where it is? Is there kind of...
You have a Peckham Rolex on your leg.
I hear they're quite sought after.
And then basically, if you go out of range, obviously, it buzzes. And I mean, I had no trouble with it, you know.
And how do they set the range? They have things in the house that, like...
They have these kind of, like, plug-in phone things, yeah.
So you couldn't take one of those out in the garden with you?
No.
How did you feel about... I mean, that must have been preferable to being in jail in the same situation.
Well, in a funny sort of way, when I came off tag, I got a bit kind of depressed because all the time I was at home on tag, I kind of had a get-out clause for everything.
Yeah.
So if I didn't want to go somewhere, I could say, I can't do that, I'm on tag, you know, which was great. And then suddenly I had to...
That's great.
You know,
so all these things you didn't want to go to, the friends maybe inviting or family inviting...
Yeah, I could kind of say, oh, I can't, I've got to be home by 7. So it was great. And, you know, and then suddenly it was like, I can't use that excuse anymore. You know?
I want to get one of those things, but I don't want to get it the same way you did. OK, how many months were you sentenced for in jail?
15 months.
15 months. So you knew with time off for good behaviour, you'd probably only do about 4 or 5.
Well, first time sentence is usually, yeah, you do 4 months.
So it's 4 months.
Depending on, you know, you do a sort of quarter of your sentence.
And don't take this the wrong way, but I'm a bit surprised it was your first sentence. Like
me too.
Because, you know, you...
Wrong end of my game, that's the problem.
So this was the kind of... Because you'd had brushes with the law in the past.
Yeah,
drug
I mean,
related,
you know, in a way I had it coming for a while, you know, so... You know, it wasn't that big a surprise for me.
And so when you knew you were going to go inside, that must have been a very grim and difficult thing to get your head around.
Well, you know, I kind of knew it was going to happen. I expected it to happen. I mean, everyone around me was like, no, you get a suspended sentence. But because in my head I'd kind of believed that I was going to prison, by the time it happened, I'd kind of got my head around it.
You were ready for it?
Yeah, and... I knew that, you know, how long it would be in the end, and, you know, I just kind of gone on with it, you know.
And presumably you knew already the rules and restrictions that would apply in there in terms
No,
of...
not at all. I had no idea. I mean, I've never been to prison before, you know. But it was a first-time experience.
Is there not a website you can go to, or people... I would have been checking out, what can I take, what should I pack?
No, you know? There's very little information about what can happen. You know,
so when you're in there, who tells you that? On the first day they explain that to you, or...?
Well, no, there's nothing explained to you. You just get taken and, you know, and then you're in there, you know.
Who takes you there? Do you have to go
big
to a
burly
police...
men.
So you go to a police station, do you, and hand yourself over?
No, you go... I went straight from court. You go from court into a waiting cell, and then you go into one of those vans, those Serco vans, you know, like a sardine, and then you go off, and, yeah, it's... I mean, the first kind of... I think the first 48 hours were a little bit of a shock to me.
I can imagine.
I mean, the funniest thing was I watched Obama's inauguration when I was in Pentonville, and that was like contrast, you know.
yeah.
I should be there, you know, but, you know, whatever. I just got on with it, you know.
But what were you said the first 48 hours were a bit of a shock. How so? What was going through your head? What did you miss? What were you fearful
of? Well, it's the unknown, you know. I mean, you walk in... Pentonville is a Victorian prison, so it's the classic, you know, every movie you've ever seen, it's that kind of setup. So you walk in and you've got the balconies, the safety nets, people shouting, "Come a chameleon," banging things. That doesn't happen in every prison.
I was going to say that's... I don't remember that ever happening to Jimmy Cagney.
No, but, you know, you get a lot of attention when you first go in, and especially if you're Boy George.
They knew you were coming, I guess.
Oh, absolutely, they knew I was coming, yeah. So, you know, I got a lot of attention, but... In a funny sort of way, you know, people were actually quite sweet. You know, I mean, people were coming and saying, "Oh, do you need a toothbrush? You know, do you want a mirror?" No, people were actually really nice.
But this is the
There's some nice people in prison.
Well, of course, because Was there any talk of a kind of an escape, a breakout? Did you start? Did you plan? Did you have spoons ready?
No, I wasn't
Nothing?
there. I wasn't there really long enough.
You didn't
to
have
be
a big
bothered about
poster
that.
like Shawshank and you were chipping away, chipping away.
I knew he was going to do this.
Reduce it to trivial nonsense, yeah. No, you know, I can't understand, I can't begin to, I think, I mean, I empathise with you, but I can't understand how that must have felt. Because you've gone from being, you know, a very, very celebrated public figure, someone who's had their public ups and downs, but suddenly your freedom is taken away from you. And it is taken from you, isn't it?
Well,
That's the
you
thing.
know, it is and it isn't. You know, what you do when you're in there is you kind of think, well, OK, how am I going to make this work for me? You know, what's the best thing to do? Got a job really quickly. I worked in the kitchen. I made all the vegetarian food, you know, and I just got on with it. And the more you do that, the quicker it goes, the less hassle you get, you know, because the people that are there, they're not the reason you're there. And they're actually quite nice, you know.
Yeah.
They're all very friendly to me. I think they expected me to be like Ruth Ballinger in that Prisoner Cell Blockade, so if you remember that. Take my coat. I think they, you know, with me, they probably thought I was going to be a complete nightmare. And the fact that I wasn't.
Yeah, they thought you'd be how we imagine Elton John would be in that situation.
Yeah, they thought I was going to be really difficult. In fact, talking of Elton, he actually sent me this huge ghetto blaster when I was there, and I couldn't have it. Unfortunately, they wouldn't let me have it. But
because, you know, if you opened up, there were knives and stuff in there. It was a fire. It was a giant fire.
Let it go. But, you know, it's very sweet, you know, and you know, the governor...
But that is very sweet that he did that.
It was very sweet, and the governor said that it was like a Blue Peter appeal down the...
So they had a lot of stuff coming in
for
for
you?
you?
People were sending me teapots and kettles and eiderdowns. I got sent a chocolate willy, which was quite funny. And I got this piece of paper stuck under my cell door to say that I couldn't have it. You know.
That's even worse, isn't it?
Yeah, I was very
And when you saw the warden, did he have a little telltale mark around his mouth?
I never said that.
He'd been enjoying
one of the funniest things that happened was somebody sent me a boys' magazine. I don't know if you know what boys' magazine is.
No.
It's a gay magazine. And I was going through it, and then I realised they'd kind of covered up all the willies. So somebody had actually gone through the magazine and spent quite a long time covering them up.
Is that like an advent calendar, though? Are you allowed one a day? As it gets nearer to Christmas. Oh, we saved the big one. Oh, look at that.
That did make me laugh. But, you know, I mean, the thing is, you know, yeah, I made friends in there. I got lots of letters from, you know, people that I didn't know.
Well, there was a lot, I know, an awful lot of goodwill towards you. A lot of people thinking...
and I was very grateful for that.
And I think what was interesting was, you know, the fact that you seemed quite accepting of it. You know, you weren't someone you didn't start complaining, you didn't start pleading it was an injustice. You know, you obviously were getting on with it. And I suspect, please correct me, on the part of you thought, OK, this is something which I can use to take me to the next stage in my life.
What, like make a hip-hop album? No, I mean, you know, it wasn't a career move, Jonathan.
I know it wasn't a career move.
And the album's out next week.
It's a concept album.
I mean, you know, I think, you know, what I can say about it was that, you know, it was 4 months to kind of be with myself, you know, and I kind of just used the time to kind of think about my life.
Let me ask you about the state of health just prior to you going in, because you had stopped during the situation that arose that led you to be incarcerated. Drugs were involved.
I was a drug addict, yeah.
Okay. At what stage? But you gave up the drugs before you were jailed.
I went into prison clean. Yeah, I got clean on March the 2nd, 2008. So I went into prison clean. I think that was part of the reason why I was able to handle it, you know, because, I mean, being in prison on drugs would be hell. But, you know, I went in... I mean, I would say now that I'm in active sobriety, you know, I'm actually very active in my recovery, if you like.
So you mean you're engaged with it and you're making sure that... and it's still something you have to be very conscious of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the rest of my life, I work a 12-step programme. You know, I'm very active about it. You know, I have commitments within this programme.
Because the thing is, once again, you know, I applaud you wholeheartedly for being where you are and doing what you're doing. But in the past, I've interviewed you several times, and most times when I've interviewed you, you've just given up drugs.
Or been high, actually.
Yeah, and it was like... And I was always thinking afterwards, well, I hope I'm not the reason he gets back on them, because you come in clean, and then a month later I'm thinking, well, was it something that I said? Now, that isn't the case, clearly. You are straight now, and I get the feeling that partly because of what's happening, partly where you are in your life, this is it now.
Well, the process started before I went to prison. You know, I kind of realised, I had a few epiphanies. I suddenly thought, you know, what have I got to be unhappy about? I have an amazing life, you know.
And was it unhappiness that was causing you to use
drugs?
drugs?
I don't know. I think, you know, some of it was proximity. I think that, you know, if you're an addictive person, you cannot be around drugs.
And it's available.
And if it's around you, you know, I made that fatal mistake of kind of letting people do it around me. And then, you know, one night you have a couple of glasses of wine and you start indulging. And so I know now that I have to be away from it, you know. And that includes everything. I've just given up smoking, which was, you know, major triumph for me, you know.
Because you've always smoked since you were about...
No, I didn't smoke till I was 26. I didn't do anything till I was 26. Everything that I did, I started late.
Nothing, George?
No, I didn't.
Nothing at
No,
all? You
not
didn't
at all.
smoke or drink?
A lot of people think that I was on drugs in Culture Club. I never did drugs in Culture Club. Culture Club was the drug. It was only after. It was after.
But, you know, this is such a weird story because we're so similar in many ways. Not in every way, but in so many ways. Because I was also someone who didn't hardly... I mean, I used to drink quite when I was a kid because it's the same... We had a very similar sort of working class background in that way. Big family. So you didn't drink, you didn't touch booze when you were younger?
No, my parents weren't drinkers, you know. I mean, my family drank at weddings, but I never grew up in a kind of family that drank heavily or...
Yeah, but nor did mine. I don't think families did back then. I mean...
Oh, no, some people did.
Yeah, yeah, I know there were exceptions. But it wasn't like it is now where most people have wine in the house. I mean, my family used to get a couple of bottles of liqueur in and a bottle of wine near Christmas. Yeah. Every year. And the rest of the year, there was no booze in the house.
My dad's brother and sister both died from alcohol, so there was addiction.
So you knew and you were aware of that?
Yeah, I grew up with that, yeah. So, you know...
It's a fascinating thing, though, because sometimes we see stars who are like talented performers and musicians and the vulnerability they expose to us and the struggles they go through make them somehow more attractive to us. I mean, I know you wrote a song for Amy Winehouse.
Well, I wrote a song about Amy Winehouse, yeah, called Your Pain Makes a Beautiful Sound.
And there is that. And, you know, you think about why you love certain performers and sometimes the suffering in their life makes you warm even more to them, peculiarly.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I like her because of her problems, but I think there's a kind of incredible vulnerability in her as a performer, as a vocalist, and I think that's what I'm attracted to. I'm not necessarily sure you have to cut your ear off to be sort of, you know, a great artist.
No,
you know?
but there was that in you, certainly when you were younger.
Well, there still is that in me.
Yeah, but no, I think for a while there wasn't.
No, there wasn't. I mean, you know, I think that the one thing I have now, which I never had, is, you know, I'm really happy. You know, and if you'd have asked me a year ago, 2 years ago, if I was happy, I would have really had a problem with that question. I mean, what do you mean? Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't really know what happiness is, but I think that, you know, I'm probably the happiest I've ever been in my life.
You'd have found a way of answering it without answering it, really. You'd have been
I'd
funny
been a politician.
Or yeah. Well, we don't want any more of those in the building right now, thanks. just getting in the building. Let's both steer clear of that business. I've always been fascinated with you because, you know, I knew of you. I didn't know you, but I knew of George, like many people of my age did, as just as a kind of figure floating around the fringes of the scene. Before you sung, before we knew you sung. And he was just this weird guy, but a brilliant guy, I thought, who used to dress as a nun, for example, and walk down the King's Road. And, you know, you did, didn't you? You wore a nun's habit and all these stuff. And then suddenly he sang, and I thought, wow, he's got an incredible voice as well. And then you became, just about for a brief period, one of the, if not the biggest pop star in the world. Yeah. I mean, not just here. You know, he's like global phenomenon. But it didn't seem to make you happy. I mean, you enjoyed the trappings of it, but you didn't seem happy within that moment.
Well, I think what I know now is that all that doesn't necessarily make you happy, you know. You have to enjoy it for what it is, you know. It's not important. Happiness is not about that stuff, you know, but it takes a long time to realise that. And, you know, when you tell other people who are embarking on, say, a career, when you tell them that, they don't want to hear it. They have to make the mistakes. They have to take that road. And you can't advise people. No one could advise me. You know, people used to say, oh, don't do this, don't do that. You'll end up, you know, in a hole. And I wouldn't listen, you know.
Let me ask you about, before we move on from jail, because one thing I was curious about is, when you were in there, did the cell become like a little Boy George island in the middle of the jail itself? Did it have posters and curtains and colourful incense blowing and stuff like that? And...
No, you have a board on the wall. It's quite strict about what you can have on the wall. I had Ziggy Stardust, which was great. I had a couple of pictures of friends, obviously family, and my nieces and nephews and that. Some pictures of Videsh, you know, from place of Manchester United. Kept me going, you know.
Yeah.
And,
he's not a football fan. We should add that. It's not why you had him up there.
No, but, you know... No, actually, I do watch football.
Do you?
Yeah, I love it. We used to watch it a lot in prison because it's quite exciting.
Is there anyone from there that you've kept in touch with?
Yeah, I've got a few friends. I'm seeing a friend of mine on Saturday. A couple of my friends have just come out. Yeah, I keep in touch with people. I write to people, send CDs, send money.
Now, here's the exciting thing for me, is that you seem to be in such a good place as a person now that I know that your work is going to be back on top. Yeah. You've got a single coming out, I believe?
In December, yes, a track called Amazing Grace, which is with a Portuguese fado singer called Anna Lanes. It's beautiful.
You've got that coming out, and you're going to be doing various different concerts. And some of these, one is a kind of a regular drink and booze, a booze-free night.
We're doing a club, from the 14th of November, which is drink and drugs free. We're going to have like juice bar and other things that keep you busy.
Hey, I'm there.
And I've got a gig next Tuesday, live gig in Camden at the Proud Gallery, and then I'm doing a series of nights at the Leicester Square Theatre in December.
And this sounds good, because one of the things I've wanted to see you do is perform in a small place again.
Yeah.
You know, I know you can do the stadiums, and with Culture Club, of course, that was your bread and butter. But to see you, especially as you get older, you know, there's something, I think, more attractive about the intimacy of seeing a performer who's got real talent, but performing in a small venue. You know, it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited by it, and I've been doing a lot of writing. You know, obviously, you know, these shows, I'm going to do, you know, I think all the songs that I think are my best songs, you know.
And you're bringing on new talent as well. I think you're thinking about managing people.
Yeah, I've got a guy that I brought over from New York called Kobe Cole, who is absolutely one of the most amazing voices I've heard in 15 years. I mean, he's like a male Amy. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and you will hear a lot about him. I'm going to produce him and you know...
But once again, this is the nice thing, because even when... And I've seen you once or twice, what I would describe you probably at your worst. And I think you know what I'm talking about. We won't go into it here. But... even when you've been down and low and stuff, I know you've always loved other performers. You've always spoken to me about other talent. I mean, last time I saw you on this show, you were off your face. And we had Angelina Johnson on, who was great. But you were here because you loved him.
Yeah, he's
And you
incredible.
wanted to help him reach a big audience. And I'm thinking, even though I can see you in an unhappy place now and you're not where you should be, you were just there because you wanted to see everyone love this guy.
Well, music has always been my salvation. It's the thing that's kind of kept me going through all of my problems. And, you know, I'm very lucky and privileged to be able to do what I do, to do what I love and actually make a living out of it. I mean, that's a blessing, you know. Well, and it's important that I remember that, and I think I will do in the future.
And, you know, and it'd be nice if we remembered that as well, because you're one of the best singers and the best songwriters this country's ever produced.
Thank you.
And I am feel... And next time you start getting tempted to stray, just call me, and I'll try and help. Ladies and gentlemen, what a lovely guest, and how lovely it is to see him back where he belongs, Boy George.
Very good, thank you.
Boy George, ladies and gentlemen.